Okay, let's unpack this. We are really digging into something today that I think trips up a lot of successful people. It's this paradox.
Hmm.
How do you handle recognition, getting praise, without letting it mess things up for you or your team?
Hmm.
We're looking at a framework drawing from some really interesting sources that we're calling the servant's secret.
Yeah, and the core problem, as our sources frame it, is that success itself, especially that public recognition, can be a huge stumbling block. It's surprising how often it can quietly derail really talented leaders.
Right. And there's
Exactly.
this tension you feel today, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of unique to our time, I think. Leaders are really caught between two big pressures. On one hand, everything's social media, the culture, it pushes you to broadcast your wins,
Hmm.
build your brand, the highlight real life.
Yeah, louder and louder.
But then on the other hand, in most professional settings, if you seem too self-promoting, you get punished for it. People call it performative or just bragging.
Mhm.
So you see this weird kind of performative humility crop up instead.
Right.
Yeah, it's confusing.
And if you get this balancing act wrong, the fallout seems pretty quick.
It is mishandling praise. It can split teams, definitely erodes your credibility if people think you're faking it.
Or just grabbing all the credit.
Exactly. And maybe worst of all, it can quietly sideline leaders who just can't figure out how to navigate those tricky political waters when the spotlight hits them.
So our mission in this deep dive is pretty crucial then. It's not just about, you know, be modest, it's more strategic.
That's the surprising truth we're uncovering. Recognition, when you handle it with integrity, is actually a powerful tool. It's not something to just deflect awkwardly. Our sources show the key is what we're calling grounded acknowledgement.
Grounded acknowledgement. Okay, so we're learning how to turn recognition from maybe a danger zone into more of a foundation. What does that actually achieve for a leader?
Well, handled right, it really elevates your influence, it strengthens trust within your team, and it anchors your leadership in something deeper than just your own ego. Leaders who get this right, they model this confidence without arrogance. They have clarity, but they don't need to constantly glorify themselves. They become, magnetic, really, because their focus is clearly pointed outward, not inward.
But if you don't get it right,
Huh?
our sources are pretty clear about the traps. What are the main ways leaders fall down here?
Yeah, there are two big ones. First is just straightforward pride. Taking credit in a way that isolates you, makes others feel small, like they didn't contribute. That's pretty obvious.
Mhm.
But the second is maybe more insidious. False modesty. That's when you reject praise so fiercely, oh no, it was nothing, that it comes across as just, insecure or even dishonest.
That false modesty thing is interesting. It feels like it's trying to protect the ego, maybe appear humble, but it ends up just undermining your credibility anyway, right?
Precisely. Neither raw pride nor that fake humility actually builds trust, and that brings us right back to the core paradox that unlocks this whole secret. True sustainable recognition, the kind that actually lifts everyone up, it only grows in the soil of genuine, consistent humility.
Okay, that's the paradox.
Yeah.
You need humility to gain strategic influence. That feels counterintuitive in a world that tells you to shout your wins. How do we actually apply this? Our sources point to some ancient wisdom, right? Biblical examples.
Exactly. They give us a kind of strategic blueprint, and the fundamental principle they model is redirection.
Redirection.
Simple idea, really. True leadership accepts the nod, the acknowledgement gratefully, but then immediately uses it strategically, turns it into a platform to honor others, or to point to a higher purpose. The response isn't denial, like, no, not me. It's attribution. Here's who or what is really behind this.
Okay, let's look at Joseph. Talk about high stakes. From a dungeon to Pharaoh's top advisor, that's a pressure cooker. How does he handle the spotlight when Pharaoh needs those dreams interpreted?
Yeah, I mean, this was literally life and death for him and potentially the nation. Pharaoh's troubled, calls him in. This is Joseph's big moment to prove his unique value, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yet what does he do? First words out of his mouth, essentially. It's not in me. God will give Pharaoh the answer. Immediate redirection.
So how is that different from just, I don't know, avoiding responsibility, saying, don't look at me?
That's the crucial distinction. He didn't deny he had the ability to help interpret. He denied that the source of that ability was solely himself.
Got it.
He was modeling immediate attribution, consistent dependence on something bigger. And the strategic result was profound. Pharaoh wasn't put off. He was actually deeply impressed by the source Joseph credited and by the lack of ego. Joseph's credibility in this incredibly tough political arena went up, not down, because he credited God.
Okay, then we have Nehemiah. different situation, more like a massive project management challenge. His redirection seems maybe less about divine insight and more about empowering the team.
Absolutely. Nehemiah's task was huge, rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. And he did it in, what, 52 days? An incredible feat.
Astonishing, yeah.
And throughout that process, he consistently attributes the progress. He uses phrases like, "The good hand of my God was upon me."
So the strategic insight there is, by framing it as divinely enabled, not just Nehemiah's brilliant plan, he actually empowers everyone chipping away at that wall.
Precisely. It creates shared purpose. It tells every single worker, you're not just laying bricks, you're part of something God is doing. And the sources even say the success was so clear that his enemies recognized it, saying, this work had been brought about by our God.
Wow.
That kind of external validation of an internal shared purpose, that's like the gold standard of servant leadership.
We should probably mention the flip side, though.
Yeah.
The danger.
Yeah.
Our sources bring up leaders where success went straight to their head and led to their downfall.
Yes, it's a consistent warning.
Yeah.
Taking all the credit for getting the source or the team, it's toxic.
Yep.
You think of King Uzziah, got powerful, got arrogant, overstepped his bounds right into the temple, and boom, downfall. Or King Nebuchadnezzar, standing on his palace roof, looking out at Babylon and saying, basically, look what I built for my glory.
Yeah, that didn't end well for him immediately.
Nope. Instantly humbled until he acknowledged a higher authority. The lesson is timeless. Success is poison if it just feeds the ego.
Okay, so now the tricky part. Translating this ancient wisdom into our world. The world of LinkedIn, humble brags, and instant online recognition. Here's where it gets really interesting, because recognition today is so directly tied to your career, your advancement.
Right. The modern battleground is way more complex. That social media highlight reel culture creates this constant pressure for instant gratification for every little win. And it forces every leader, really, to get good at spotting the counterfeits of humility.
Okay, let's break down those counterfeits, the things we shouldn't be doing when we get praised at work.
Well, the first big one we mentioned is false modesty. This is that performance, the classic, oh, it was nothing. Honestly, anyone could have done it.
Even when it clearly wasn't nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Or today, it might be the subtle humble brag online,
Right.
So humbled by this award when everyone knows they lobbied hard for it. It just feels insincere, maybe even manipulative, because it's still all about managing their own image, just under a thin veil of minimizing the win.
So it's not real humility. It's a clumsy strategy to look good while still drawing attention to yourself.
You got it. And the second danger is self-deprecation. Now, a bit of humor about yourself is fine, but chronic self-deprecation, that's different.
How so?
If you're constantly putting yourself down, especially in a leadership role or when you're trying to get promoted, if you're always minimizing your skills in meetings, joking about how you're not good at things, it seriously undermines your credibility.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it puts this weird burden on everyone else to constantly reassure you, oh no, you're great. It signals a real lack of confidence in the actual gifts and skills you do have. And that can absolutely kill you in performance reviews or when you're trying to negotiate for more responsibility or better pay.
So it sounds like the genuinely humble leader actually needs to be pretty secure. Secure enough to accept that they're competent without needing to constantly advertise it or deny it.
That is the core difference, yes. Genuine humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's having a realistic view of yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses in relation to God and to others. And crucially, it means being secure enough to just receive genuine appreciation gracefully.
Okay, wait. If the real art is this redirection we talked about, how does that square with just saying thank you? If you just say thanks, isn't that keeping the focus on you? But if you immediately pivot to crediting others, doesn't that risk sounding, well, calculated, like you're following a script?
That's a fantastic question. It really gets to the heart of the authenticity needed here. The thank you has to come first, and it has to be sincere. Why? Because it honors the person giving the compliment. It validates their observation, their kindness in expressing it.
Okay, so acknowledge the giver first.
Right. If you immediately jump into, oh, but it was really Jane who did X, it can feel scripted, like you didn't even hear or value the praise itself. So you accept it gracefully. A simple, heartfelt, thank you, I really appreciate that. Pause. Let it land. Then the redirection flows naturally from your genuine gratitude and your internal conviction that the success wasn't yours alone. It has to come from that place.
That makes sense. It has to feel real.
Which brings us nicely to the practical steps, right? The actual how-to, this credit others first framework, the goal being turn the mirror into a window.
Exactly. Stop using recognition just to reflect back on yourself. Use it as a window to show the values, the purpose, and the people driving the success.
And there are two main directions for this credit.
Two key directions. The first is credit upward, glorifying God. And let's be honest, this can be the trickiest one to navigate in diverse professional, maybe secular workplaces.
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you intentionally point to God's help or a higher purpose without sounding, preachy or putting people off or just fake pious? It really requires sensitivity to your context and genuine intention. The goal isn't necessarily overt religious language, unless that's appropriate for your setting. It's about pointing to a source of strength, insight, or even perseverance that's outside your own innate genius.
So subtle ways.
Often, yes. Instead of maybe a specific religious phrase, you might connect a breakthrough insight to a clarity that came after a period of deep reflection, or mention providence, or things falling into place unexpectedly, or talk about a deeper sense of purpose that guided a tough decision.
Okay.
The key is you're speaking from a place of genuine gratitude, and you're planting the idea that this good outcome wasn't just because you're brilliant or worked harder than everyone else. You allow others to interpret that providence or guidance through their own lens, but you've successfully deflected sole credit.
That feels much more doable in most workplaces. Okay, what's the second direction? Credit outward, empowering others. It seems like it would have the most immediate impact on your team, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is where servant leadership really builds loyalty and trust. And the key action here is specificity. Specificity is crucial, meaning you have to move beyond the generic, couldn't have done it without my team, or my team was great. That's okay, but it's not enough.
Right.
You need to specifically and sincerely acknowledge individual contributions. You need to be able to say, thank you, and I especially want to recognize Sarah for her innovative approach to that data analysis, and Michael for the late nights he put in to get the report finalized. Naming names, naming contributions, it shows you were actually paying attention, that you value their specific efforts, not just using them as a nameless group.
That specificity really does signal authentic appreciation, doesn't it? It shows you see them.
It does. And tied closely to that is the simple linguistic shift, moving from I to we whenever you're talking about shared accomplishments. It sounds small, maybe, but it's powerful.
Give me an example.
Okay, say your project wins an award. The press asks you for a comment. Instead of saying, I'm thrilled that I developed the solution, you shift. Thank you, we are thrilled we were able to tackle this complex problem because Jane came up with that brilliant idea for X, and Marcus and his team worked tirelessly on Y. See the difference?
Yeah, it includes everyone. It reinforces that team mindset immediately. But the leader still gets credit, right, for leading that team.
Of course. You're not abdicating leadership. You're framing your role within that successful collaboration. You're demonstrating powerfully that your success is dependent on the talented people you work with. That's secure leadership.
So if a leader consistently practices this credit others first framework, crediting upward appropriately, crediting outward specifically, what's the ripple effect? What changes in the team or the organization?
The effects build up, and they're really profound. One of the biggest impacts is fostering psychological safety.
How so?
When team members know their leader is meticulous about giving credit where it's due, they become much less afraid to take smart risks. They're more likely to speak up with new ideas, even challenging ones, because they trust their contribution will be acknowledged, not stolen or minimized if it works, or blamed if it doesn't quite pan out.
And that safety must build deep trust and loyalty, I imagine.
Absolutely it does. It proves the leader is fair, that they're not just in it for themselves, that they genuinely care about the team's growth and success. That kind of loyalty is priceless, especially when things get tough.
Yeah.
And maybe the biggest long-term benefit, it cultivates a culture of shared ownership. When success is consistently framed as ours, not just mine, people stop feeling like cogs in a machine and start feeling like real partners in the endeavor.
And partners take initiative. They solve problems together.
Exactly. That shared ownership unlocks incredible potential in a team. Increased initiative, better problem solving, more resilience. It transforms the whole dynamic.
Okay. So what does this all mean then for the executive listening, the manager, maybe the person just starting out and hoping to lead one day?
It means that this servant's secret handling recognition without grabbing the spotlight isn't just, a nice moral idea. It's deeply strategic wisdom. It's the practical path to building credibility that lasts, fostering loyalty that can weather storms, and setting a tone of gratitude that can actually change an organization's culture. It's really the doorway to the most authentic, most powerful form of servant leadership we can aspire to.
And when we look for the ultimate model of this,
Yeah.
the sources point clearly in one direction.
Yeah.
Someone who had every right to all the recognition.
Yeah. We ultimately look to Christ. He consistently pointed away from himself, towards the Father. He modeled this radical service washing feet as the true definition of authority and power. He didn't deny who he was, his divine nature, but he expressed it through service, through dependence, through putting others first.
Right.
His life shows us that true power is actually found in that kind of dependence. And real authority is shown in service, not in self-exaltation. That's the ultimate blueprint for any leader who wants their influence to mean something more than just a temporary moment in the spotlight.
So here's the final thought for you, the listener. You've been given gifts, skills, opportunities, maybe a lot of them. But our sources today remind us, none of them are truly just yours to keep for yourself. So the question becomes, how will your legacy be defined? By the spotlight you managed to occupy, or by the light you were able to reflect onto the purpose and the people around you? What's one courageous act of recognition, redirection, maybe small, maybe subtle, that you could take this week to quietly shift the tone where you work? We invite you to think about that and maybe embrace the servant secret.